Hey everyone, welcome to the Building E-commerce segment of MyAlice. I'm Redman, your host for the show. In this segment, we help out the newcomers and early enthusiasts of the e-commerce ecosystem to learn and navigate around this vast digital jungle with a modern approach. Now, if you're new to the segment and channel, welcome. I drop an episode every second and fourth Sunday where you'll find SaaS experts, digital marketing experts, and e-commerce experts, and me with developers bringing in their playbook for success. So if you're new and if you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to smack that subscribe button so you get notified every time I drop an episode. Intro. So last week we had Derek Haney from eCommerce Tech in with us, where we talked a lot about the Shopify ecosystem, his journey as a high-stakes poker player to the e-commerce world, and the importance of having the right tech stack for making the best out of your Shopify store. So if you haven't checked that episode out, click on the link below. Highly recommend you guys check it out. Moving on to this week, we have one of the most amazing minds in the world out there right now. He's all the way from Philippines. He's the CEO of Partnerled Partners and SkyRocket Studios. Please welcome to the show, Patrick. How's it going? Good to have you.
Very good. Thank you for having me. How's it going with you?
Yeah, so pretty good. Can't complain. It's actually a monsoon, like the start of the monsoon here in Bangladesh, so everything's getting quite wet. But hey, it's gonna get heated up in this room right now because we are gonna talk a lot of things to heat the conversation up. Get the temperature rolling. So you and I have been working together for a while now. We've been conversing a lot. Working with you as usual is always a breeze. And the more I've gotten to know about you, like one of the things we've connected on is how we have like a global experience. You know, you're out of Jersey. Graduating out of Rutgers. Spent a bit of time working. I spent a bit of time working at Dun and Bradstreet, Merrill Lynch. Now it's just just Merrill now. Again, working on institutional organizations, and then you moved back to Philippines, right? So what took you along this journey? How did it start?
Yeah, so actually the Philippines, number one, is a beautiful place. So I can't wait for you to come visit and hang out. Again, we'll have a few drinks together, of course. But ultimately, I moved back for personal reasons. I didn't grow up here. I was born here, but didn't grow up here. And I came back just to come visit. This was back in 2009. I visited and kind of just fell in love with the place. And at the time, you talked about kind of the institutions that I was working for, but at the time I was running my own e-commerce company, selling yo-yos online. And the interesting part about that is that, we had this office in New York, we had an office in the West Sussex, UK. And I figured, why do I need to be in New York or stuck in New York? So within 6 months after visiting the Philippines, 6 months I moved here. It was pretty amazing. I just fell in love with the place. People say it's a motherland and stuff like that, for me at least. But for me, it was really just because I didn't realize how kind of advanced or developed, Metro Manila was at the very least. And the fact is, 1 hour away on a plane, you're in some of the most beautiful places on earth. So there was a place I visited, Boracay. I love it. I now have a bar there. And so, that's how much I love the place. Just last week, I have this tan now, or my nose is burnt, but I came back from this beautiful island called El Nido. So I guess that's what brought me here. The visit brought me here because I wanted to see what it was like. What kept me was really just a lot of opportunity that was, happening here in the Philippines. So yeah, that's it. I hope that answers that question.
Yeah. I mean, you started off with your yo-yo business because you're like a yo-yo pro, going into competitions, like flipping around the world. Yeah, what's happening to that?
Yeah, but back in high school, I was doing it for fun, but then ended up getting sponsored right away. Then the whole sponsored by one of the biggest yo-yo companies in the world. And so fast forward a little bit, I went to school, university. I did the whole Merrill Lynch thing, Wall Street. And then I felt like that there was something missing in my life because I actually quit yo-yos to do all that adulting stuff, if you will. But that thing that was missing in my life, for some people that were, for some people it's, religion. For some people it's something else. For me, it was yo-yos. So I got back into it with the fiery passion, started the business, e-commerce, actually back in 2005. This was before Facebook even was open to the public. And so this was back in the day. We were using discussion forums to get our message across, so on and so forth. But with that, because of the whole thing, I ended up being one of the champions of the region, the state, the world, international, so on and so forth. So Yeah, I dabble a little bit when it comes to yo-yos. I still do, once in a while. But
Killing it everywhere you go, especially with yo-yos, huh? Have you ever like smacked someone across the face with a yo-yo, like somebody like trying to mug you and it's like bam?
Myself included, yes. But I was actually there's this one show on MTV called Silent Library. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but it was like it came from a Japanese show where there's people that are in a library, a studio, of course. That was set up like a library, and everybody gets a certain punishment, and they were supposed to kind of prevent or stop themselves from laughing. But I was one of the punishments. So I had to kill, I had to kind of beat somebody up with a yo-yo. And then I ended up making him bleed. So, yo-yos can get pretty dangerous.
Yeah, pretty dangerous. Yeah. So back in the day when you started your yo-yo business, right? And it was like, you had your online store as well back in the day, if I'm correct, right? Did you start, like, which platform did you start out of? Was it out of like WordPress, or was it like a custom build back in 2005?
Nobody was talking about WooCommerce. Nobody was talking about Shopify. I don't even think Shopify was founded back then. We're using open source. It's proprietary. A platform called Xcart. It still exists today, but it was proprietary. But then they used open source code, so there were a lot of different things that the community was doing to build extensions, or I guess what you call now plugins to the platform. We were using that. We built it. I was just using the skill set that I had from Merrill Lynch. I was on the technology team. And then combined it with my love for yo-yos. So I built it that way.
Yeah. What was it like to build and scale your e-commerce business back in 2005, considering the advent of internet was just happening at the time, and there weren't any like active social media platforms where you could actually sort of like advertise and grow your audience base, right? So what was it like back in the day?
So it was interesting. So let me put it this way. I think, I think it's still a way to win, considering that there are a lot of really large marketplaces out there. Here in the Philippines, we've got a marketplace called Shopee, Lazada. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this. I think one of the ways to win in e-commerce is really going mass niche. You can take a niche product and literally, when people say you can make a living or a killing off of what what your passions are, you can. And e-commerce will really help you do that. With that said, one of our main ways of kind of like marketing this was really just to this niche audience that were hardcore yo-yo players. And we used discussion forums for this. You guys remember discussion forums? It's kind of like Reddit. One page, right? So, so we built the community, and the fact is, community still exists today. As you know, it's still one of the biggest ways to kind of grow a loyal following and keep retention, so on and so forth. But we built this community where anytime we said a new drop, like how people talk about sneakers or new iPhones, we would say that there's a new drop of this yo-yo, limited in number and quantity, and so there would only be 100 pieces around the world. It would drop at 3 a.m. Eastern time. People from all over the world would come in, and literally just one post on a discussion forum, people from all over the world would come in and try to grab it, right? And so there were so many, I think we had a total of around 15,000 hardcore followers for this. Customers, actually, not followers, customers. And, a big chunk of them would be just sitting there on their keyboards, hitting F5 or refresh, whatever, right? And they do, when we were first starting off, when we first announced these drops, our site would crash. And so it's a very different ball game. We didn't have to do the demand generation the way that most companies would do today. Let's say some kind of paid media in order to pay for your customers, so on and so forth. In fact, just a little thing is that we were actually beta testers. Our site we're beta testers. We were in Google's New York City offices testing out their first, like some of their search products that were coming out that are now popular today, right? So Google Ads and stuff like that. And so it really just was a different ball game. Direct access, first party data, all this stuff was just immensely a lot more important than the way people might be doing demand generation today. In terms of logistics, we were using USPS, which is like literally like the post office in the US, but they were over in the US, it was $6 shipping, $21, express shipping all over the world. We thought that was totally fine. But now there's all these other 3PLs you can work with that make life a lot easier. And again, we weren't the first. Amazon was still around. We were going to work with Amazon, put their barcodes and stuff like that. It really just was a different ball game. Even managing the site, managing inventory, all different using these different platforms. I hope that answers your question as well in terms.
It does because if I just really think about it, what I was trying to think about, whether or not your audience base was strictly based out of Manila or Philippines, or was it like a you just hit a global audience, right? So, and just trying to think about back in the day, how you would try to build around a global audience, and community, definitely a good way to go about it. And it's still one of the biggest tools to use, when you're building up your business and building up a community around it. So, it's totally answers but from YOYO Nation.
Yeah. So real quick, we were shipping to 79 countries around the world.
Back in 2005.
Yeah, back in 2005. Yeah. 79 countries around the world. Again, your little lifestyle business. I wish I knew then what I know now, right? So if you're talking about scaling, we were from $0 to $2.4 million annually. Decent for a little lifestyle business, right? And so it was nice, it paid for our penthouse in Union Square, New York, so on and so forth, multiple offices, but it wasn't something like, again, if I knew then what I know now, it would be a very different story. And so, that's part of experience. I didn't know what I was doing with e-commerce back then. I mean, who did, right? As a small business owner, right? So who did? So, and again, that's what I think that's what experience is. So I think you were getting into it, but now it's a little bit different. So perhaps continuing with kind of like the history is that YOYO Nation brought me to the Philippines as well, as I mentioned earlier. But again, I saw a lot of opportunity here. One of the opportunities I saw is that there was a company out in the States that was doing something that was pretty interesting in the e-commerce space. E-commerce was still quite nascent in the Philippines. It was back in 2011 at the time. And I literally just copied with pride one of these business models. And this business model was the daily deals or the group buying space or model, which was essentially a company called Groupon. Groupon pioneered this whole model. So built that, ended up kind of selling it over to Groupon eventually, essentially Rocket Internet. So I became kind of like one of the Rocket Internet founders back in the day. Grew that very quickly here in the Philippines. It was huge. We were leading e-commerce besides the airlines. And this was before the marketplaces were around in the Philippines. So people were still kind of like trying to understand what was going on with e-commerce. People were trying to understand what was going on with buying with a credit card. Back then, I think it was like 3.5% penetration for credit cards in the Philippines. And so, it was an uphill battle. We were working directly with the Department of Trade and Industry and the Bureau of Internal Revenue as to how to tax us from a e-commerce perspective. So we were literally educating the government here and the market about what e-commerce was. And again, this was 2011. This was again, I'm going to say prior to COVID, so on and so forth. But then as the years went by, banks, other payment providers, other ways to pay online or alternatives to pay online, alternatives to credit cards, let's say, started coming about. And I think this is then something kind of like catapulted, e-commerce over into the Philippines. And then we'll get into COVID and what happened after that with the marketplaces and stuff like that. So, that's kind of what I did after the whole YOYO thing, if you will.
Yeah, between between Groupon, you were also in CIMB.
Yeah, so not between. So this was actually a little bit actually more recent. This is from like 2017 to 2019. When I left Groupon, headhunters were still contacting me, and there's one point where I was contacted to be potentially CEO for a large ASEAN-wide bank. This is the 5th largest bank in ASEAN. And I knew them because I used to travel all over, for the YOYO business and for Groupon. And so obviously I did go out to this. And the thing is, I was already kind of like, I left Groupon at the time because Groupon pulled out of Asia. And I was kind of like looking into just opportunities because I already had my own businesses that I was launching. When I walked into the interview, I was like, hey guys, I've got these other things going on, but what can we do together? So I'm not going to take the job, but what can we do together? I think they liked that whole attitude and approach. Essentially, as sooner as time went on, they were getting their it was closer for them to get their banking license here in the Philippines. Then they reached out and said, hey, let's do something together. So I joined as a consultant, but essentially was the first guy on the ground here. Built out their their business, hired the first people, so CIMB and retail banking, but this time it was a neo-bank kind of model, so it was an all digital bank. I loved that whole idea of something that was completely new in the Philippines, again breaking ground with a different industry here, and with that I was their head of business and partnerships and their CMO. Ultimately, we were able to acquire a significant number of customers within the first year through the things we've done. We've partnered with the biggest mobile money or mobile wallet player in the Philippines called Gcash. And with one tap, you can create a bank account, a savings account with the highest interest rates in the market. And that's actually CIMB product. And so again, we did a lot of things there, and now I continue to consult for banks and neobanks here in the Philippines. So besides the e-commerce, there's also banking. There's also consulting aspects. So I do a few things here and there.
Yeah. so from such a diverse background, right? Like you've jumped across so many different industries, and then you've finally made your way to Pylon Partners, and now you're also like working across SkyRocket Digital, right? So you're working across the huge landscape. How much exposure did it give you to working along with bringing like e-commerce brands and e-commerce businesses in Philippines, and like how have you seen like the entire landscape change over the years?
Yeah. Okay. So Pylon is my holding company, and that's what owns kind of, because I think you see behind me or whatever, but I own bars. I used to have. I just recently sold a company that did on-demand liquor and beverage delivery, and we supplied all the bar tools. We got a bunch of bar tools from China, and then sold it here in the Philippines, and supplied all the bars, hotels, restaurants, and nightclubs. So that was an e-commerce business as well. Again, able to exit in a decent way, if you will. And so with that, I would, I guess, to answer your question in one line, I wouldn't get into these businesses if I didn't see opportunity. That's number one. Yeah. So the landscape has been changing since I've been doing things with Groupon. Again, that was e-commerce. So we're doing about $1 million, $800 to $1 million a month with that business. Excuse me. But then when it came to with nowadays, after COVID, things have changed significantly. I think this changed all over the world. It's not just the Philippines. We're not, just alone with this, but everyone was forced to kind of go into, okay, what do we do now since we're stuck at home in lockdown? I think we have the world's longest lockdown, if anything. And with that, e-commerce goes into even on-demand services or the aggregators, or again, ordering food online, or even buying anything and everything directly from China. You get it within a week online. Everything there is just available to you, and it's been pretty amazing because I enjoy it, and I feel like that. The entire landscape of the Philippines has changed because of it. So again, everything that's a part of the entire e-commerce value chain has changed. This is everything from payments, 3PLs, logistics, warehousing, cold chain, even ghost kitchens, of course, has been a big thing for us here in the Philippines. Packaging, everything across the entire value chain has changed simply because COVID accelerated or catapulted everybody into this whole buying online aspect. Before that, it was still growing significantly, but now it's just something that no one can ignore. With that said, even for SkyRocket, because of this, SkyRocket's a digital-first, end-to-end agency. It's been good for the agency because everyone's looking for these kind of services. How do we take kind of like a traditional model, especially companies that have been stuck in kind of the traditional ways of working, brick and mortar, whatever it might be? How do we take them and still make them relevant in an age where nobody cares about brick and mortar and everybody needs to find something online? And so it's been pretty big for us. And so, again, that's led to the growth of SkyRocket as well. And so, again, I think overall, just everybody getting to the whole digital space, everyone is getting into digital space, and therefore that is exactly what is different. If they're not on there, then either they die out, and unfortunately we have seen companies have done this, as I'm sure around the world you've seen this, but those who are able to adapt very quickly are able to kind of still win. In fact, there's been a lot of people that have kind of about as new real contenders in the space because of the fact that people are digital and others were not prepared for it. So I hope that that makes sense.
It does. Just to get a better understanding, because what I'm seeing from my data, from all the research that I've done, is that the year-on-year growth on Shopify for Philippines it's an immaculate data to look at, right? And then WooCommerce and WordPress has existed for so many years, right? So there's already so many existing stores out there. It's the buyer confidence, like the consumer confidence on purchasing from online store. It's something that's increasing in Philippines, because in Bangladesh, you have a lot of like online store coming up, but the access to brick and mortar store in the country is so strong. The wholesale market, if you look at the apparel industry, because all the garments are produced here, so the smaller wholesale retail markets where you find apparel clothing is so accessible, right? So people don't generally opt for purchasing your regular clothing items online, that rather go to a store and buy it. Of course, food scenario is different. We have Food Panda here and other food delivery providers here. And plus Ghost Kitchens and Cloud Kitchens, they've been very big. But focusing on the e-commerce in itself, the consumer confidence, it's still something that businesses have to work with to sort of like increase it so that more people opt to purchase online as opposed to the brick and mortar store. So would you say that in comparison, right? How is it like in Philippines? Is the consumer confidence increasing every day, and are people finding it more comfortable to, opt for purchasing things online?
I would say that you guys, from what it sounds like, purchasing online, you guys are in a space where we were right prior to COVID, right? Yeah, we have, Food Panda. Yes, I don't think it's any different from Food Panda though, right? Because would you go to a restaurant because you're already in a mall, or do you want to be able to have everything delivered to you, right away? My answer is yes. Every single day, people are becoming a lot more confident in purchasing online. Partly because it's very social as well. There's also the rise of social commerce, if you know.
Yeah.
And so it becomes something where people start talking about it, and people understand you can get these things online very easily. I think that you can have the same things that we've experienced, back in 2005, where people will complain about certain things because of items being damaged when they cut to their homes and stuff like that. But in general, people are very. In fact, I think it's become a way of life. People talk about it. There's memes that are created about it, about people ordering online and stuff like that. Major celebrities are getting involved, and there's a lot of marketing dollars being poured into buying from the marketplaces, or even mom and pop shops building an e-commerce store. Even I know we're talking about Shopify and WooCommerce, but if you think about how many people sell things online through Facebook Marketplace, Instagram, whatever, even TikTok, as you might know, they have a partnership with Shopify coming up, and you can create stores there, so on and so forth, and buy directly from there. It has become a way of living. And if you want something, you simply just go to one of these marketplaces or anything online, Google it if you have to, and you can make a purchase. I was actually just talking about this with somebody earlier today, but during COVID, let me just put it this way: you can get things like lock picking sets directly or delivered from China. I don't know why I said lock picking, but literally I bought a lock picking set just to learn how to pick locks and stuff like that. That's how geeky I am. But learn how to pick locks. And hey, you know what? Hey, here's a lock picking set. It's super inexpensive because it's coming from a neighbor, China, and it's here in like 7 days. That's the world that we live in now, and it's pretty amazing, if you will. So, I hope that.
Look, marketplaces like F-commerce marketplaces are great. It basically gives you a direct access for sellers to have like an already generated audience to sell to, right? And Philippines, I believe that Shopee and Lazada have the big chunk of the audience already covered up. Any other player coming into the market?
There are. It's actually one of our clients. Can't say too much about it right now, but there are. That's a good thing. But there's also Zalora. They launched the same time as Rocket Internet, which is on fashion, if you will. As you know, Shein is a big behemoth in the world right now. There's a lot of
absolutely
maybe not so negative sentiment around them right now because of how large they are and how fast fashion they really are compared to the brick and mortar brands. But all of those platforms, all those marketplaces are here now. All those businesses are here. I would say there's even other ones that are kind of like still relevant because they're selling specifically. They're within a specific category that where they can create content specific for that category, if that makes sense, right? So actually that's what I was going into earlier. I feel like that niche and being specific to a vertical or an industry and doing e-commerce that way is a way to compete. And still make a decent, create a decent business, even with Lazada and Shopee around, if that makes sense. So, I think there's a bunch that are around, and there are a bunch more that are coming to play. I don't think Amazon's entering the market yet. I haven't heard anything, but there are other opportunities that are coming around, and I'm excited to see what happens there as well.
Yeah, which market's the most heated right now? It's like Shopee, Lazada, Shopify, WooCommerce. Like who's got the big heat going on right now in Philippines?
The big heat, as in like who's the
hottest? Who's the hottest?
I think
who's like killing
I think the market leader around the region actually is Shopee. At least that's from what I hear. And Shopee is, they've been doing a lot. Actually, I heard a conversation just last week. Overheard one talking about how Shopee is just like that much better than Lazada. Although I shop at Lazada, I shop at Shopee. Whoever has kind of like, essentially merchants are going to be somewhat the same. But yeah, whoever has kind of like the better price is where I'm going to go. Because this has now become, again, commoditized, right? Back in the day, you would find a store and you like something, great, no problem. But now you find something, you do research on it on your phone because you have access to it right there. You look at prices on both Shopee and Lazada, and then you make a choice. There's also C2C platforms, which is where Shopee started off, but Carousel is somewhat larger here in the Philippines as well. There's a bunch of different platforms that we can work with here to make a purchase. So,
yep, sounds fantastic. So if you're a seller, right, or let's say if you're an entrepreneur, peak COVID or COVID's gone now, you want to sort of like bounce back, and you have a business idea, you want to sell something, right? Where do you want to go? Do you want to go to Shopee? Do you want to go to Lazada? Do you want to like make your own website on Shopify or WooCommerce? Like, who are the segments really for? Like, and if somebody came to you and asked, or if I came to you, I was like, hey, I got a business idea, I want to sell this, I want to start it out in the Philippines. Should I go to Shopify? Should I go to Lazada? Or should I just make my own website on Shopify or WooCommerce?
Yeah, first response to that would be, what are your margins? Because obviously selling through the marketplaces, they'll take a big chunk of your margins. So I would say that would be my first response. My second response is that you should be on every single platform that you can be on, because selling a product is selling a product is selling a product. Ultimately, your demand generation would be through your website, hopefully, or if you're running CPaaS ads, you can run those through through Shopee and Lazada. But yeah, I would say it's never been easier to sell things online. You create your Shopify website, super easy, or your WooCommerce website, super easy. And if not, you've got a bunch of partners like myself or other agencies that can help you out with it relatively inexpensively. And then why not open yourself up to the marketplaces where there is significant traffic? Why not? Because then you can move product and you can replace that product that's sitting on a shelf, and then move other products that way. But again, the margins come through your own website, so why not have your own website? That's my quick answer to that question, is that be everywhere you can be, unless you don't, again, want to deal with sacrificing margins by selling in the marketplaces. I think that's my only caveat.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. I guess I gotta open up everywhere now. Open up a shop everywhere, and then get someone to make my content on TikTok, because once. Yeah. No, because TikTok's already rolled out their features in China. Live selling in China. They did a discrete rollout in UK. So I see them expanding across Asia very soon, and also Europe. I don't see why they shouldn't do it. It's a huge marketplace. Instagram's doing it anyway, but Instagram's a bit behind in the game, so TikTok's going to capitalize on that very soon.
Yeah, Meta in general, even Facebook shops, they're planning to do the same thing, but again, TikTok is a little bit ahead when it comes to the live selling aspect.
Yeah, I mean, you can go live on Facebook anyway now, so it's just a matter of really integrating that on TikTok. You can still go live on Instagram, but Instagram's a bit diluted; it gets lost.
But the interesting thing about TikTok's platform is that it directly integrates with Shopify, as in you can be live and you can say buy this now, and you literally can check out right from TikTok, which is pretty awesome. So
which is
super excited for that.
It's gonna change the game, honestly. Because there's no such integration like that anywhere in the world. So this will totally change the game. Talking about changing the game, right? So SkyRocket again, been changing the game for a lot of businesses, right? And a core part of SkyRocket's development is definitely a lot of key partnership strategies, right? So it's a digital marketing agency, a digital house. So what were some of the core go-to-market strategies, or even partnership strategies that SkyRocket had taken up in its earlier years, and how has that changed the entire skyline for SkyRocket ever since?
So here's the thing: SkyRocket is an agency. We provide services, and we'd like to say that we're broad. We go broad and we go deep. We're omni-channel and we're full funnel, right? Because we are, and because we look at things from a very consultative perspective. We know that there's things that exist in the world that would need to complete some businesses' technology or marketing technology stack. And with that said, why reinvent the wheel? Why not work with folks who have some amazing platforms already? And that's how we found, folks like MoEngage for marketing automation, customer engagement, and mobile marketing. Folks like MyAlice for customer touchpoint aggregation, chatbots, so on and so forth. Other things like ad attribution. We don't build those platforms, and there's no way that we'd even want to try to compete with that in that space. But ultimately, with the fact that we are doing these things, a lot of different services for clients, we know that they need them. And so we're able to kind of just tap onto our partners like that and bring them on board to the client, and therefore everybody wins, if you will. Right? And so the client wins, we win, our partners win. And ultimately, I think it's just a matter of time before people realize that there are these types of platforms that exist that aren't really too expensive and add more value than what the costs are. To be quite honest with you, they add that much more value in terms of just being able to integrate for a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden now you have all these capabilities that can enhance customer experience, enhance whatever it might be. And so I think that's been the game changer for us, knowing that these platforms are necessary as businesses get a little bit more savvy, as businesses grow, as we get a little bit more savvy. And that's kind of like what's helped us kind of add even more value to our clients, not just from the services that we offer, from the team that we have, creative, digital, or technology, but be able to bring in all these other partners to them.
Yeah. When it comes to bringing in partners, right? What's the one time there was a partnership that you thought, oh, this is gonna pay off, but it completely backfired? We always talk about partnership success stories, but I'm sure given your vast experience of working across so many years, e-commerce and not e-commerce, or even with SkyRocket, what's that one partnership you look back and you're like, oh man, I shouldn't have done this?
Talking about partnerships in the way we're talking about now, right? Not necessarily partners where we're dealing with literally co-partners and co-founders. I don't want to get into that. I would say that, and this has nothing to do with SkyRocket, but I would say that partnerships where it starts off with something already being one-sided. If it's a partnership that starts off with them having kind of a motive for them to grow rather than for the partnership to flourish. I know this is very vague, but I don't want to get into the details or anything like that. I think it comes down to that. I think that's where you say, oh, actually, that was a big waste of time. The fact is, with partnerships, there's a lot of resources that go into building a partnership, right? Whether it comes to integration, whether it comes to building out somebody else's business, whether it comes into demand generation, whether it comes into marketing the partnership, whatever it might be. And if a partner is going to, let's say, take advantage of that for their own purposes rather than for the partnership, I think that's where it doesn't go anywhere. You might start, it's easy to start anything, but for a partnership to flourish, it takes work. And I swear this isn't about relationships, as in your boyfriend and girlfriend or husband and wife. This really is the way it works. So we should treat it as such because, again, being head of biz dev and partnerships for CIMB, I can think back at some partnerships that were not so successful, where they felt like it was one-sided, so on and so forth, where they felt like that they were the better business, if you will, right? And I think rather than backfiring on us, I think we were prudent enough to understand when a partnership would not be so successful, where we would then start allocating less resources to that partnership, if you will, right? And then allocating resources to partnerships that would be, kind of like a fruitful type of relationship. Sometimes it's not best to partner with number one, right? Sometimes it's best to partner with number two because they're willing to fight to become number one, and they're willing to fight with you and understand the value of that partnership, that relationship. It's getting a little bit deep, but I hope this is helping, with this conversation.
Conversation should be deep. It's always thought-provoking that way. But in saying that, I always you come from a partnership background. I currently, but it's been 3.5 years that I've been working across partnership in 2 different kind of industries, tech, development, right? So I've always focused on endorsing a partner-led growth, right? You can always have a service or a product-led growth. You can always have a sales-led growth. But partner-led growth is something that's coming off as something of a new or a fresher concept these days, right? How important was partner-led growth for you, even for SkyRocket or there'd be CIMB in current context, right? So how important is partner-led growth?
How important is that? I think it's not even important. I think it's necessary. In this day and age, it's so easy. Again, let's take e-commerce or whatever, right? It's so easy to compare prices across the board. So it's not about let's say. It's not about, let's say, for example, being the best at something, right? It's being able to offer something that others cannot, or even being able to offer something that we cannot. How long would it take for us to build something, let's say, for example, like MyAlice? How long, no way we would do that. So in order to add value to our clients, I think it's a lot easier, number one, to find really great partners that are looking to, number one, grow their business, but also add value to our clients. I think it's just the way to do things these days. And for those that don't recognize the fact that partnerships are a necessary part of business these days, then I think they're the ones that are going to kind of like die. Again, look at TikTok and Shopify's partnership. How monumental will that be? And I think they both understand this. I can name a ton of other partnerships, even CIMB and Gcash, right? We're working with the largest mobile money player here in the Philippines. There's no way that I would have looked back at CIMB and not have done a partnership like that, if that if that makes sense. So I think it is necessary. It is fundamental to doing business in this day and age.
Should you be telling all the Shopify store owners right there, like out there right now, to like jump into TikTok and just brace for the time like TikTok launches their integration with Shopify in like Philippines, just to brace for that impact?
Not even just brace for the impact. I think from a marketing perspective, be on TikTok because it's relevant, especially if it's not just a platform where there's young Gen Zers dancing around or being, let's say, scantily clad on TikTok anymore. It really is a serious platform where there's a lot of eyeballs. It's a really serious platform when it comes to growth. So you should be, your brand should be on there anyway, engaging with customers there. Of course, there's tactics and strategies and tactics to executing that properly. But to answer your question on the Shopify side or the live selling side, be there because there's in fact just lives in general, and I think everybody that's not even on Shopify. If they're on Lazada or Shopee, they know that lives are a big part of their business. So that gives you an opportunity to do that, to do something like a live platform or live selling platform where you don't have to necessarily pay the crazy margin cuts that or margins that Lazada or Shopee would ask for. The answer is yes. Not just a brace for it, be on there now, and that way the platform so well that you can easily just transition the sales channel or create a new sales channel through TikTok when it does launch here. Yes,
perfect.
Out there, go.
I'm on TikTok. I started like making cat videos for now, but then I'm gonna like eventually move on to like make. Hey, cat videos are just for like, hey, I need to learn the platform, so once I get to like making much more serious content, I'm just gonna like remove them and get more serious content on. But no, TikTok, Shopify, WooCommerce, this whole scenario of Philippines. We got a lot from Patrick today. We're at the we're gonna be at the closing end of our segment for today. But before we close, SkyRocket Digital, one of the most fantastic digital agencies we're working out of Philippines. If you are out there from Philippines or anywhere out in the world and you wanted to reach out to them, where would you find them, Patrick?
So if one wanted to reach out to SkyRocket, where would you find them? SkyRocket.ph, number one. Or, we like to say if you just Google creative digital agency in the Philippines, we're one of the first to come up because, again, we kind of know what we're doing when it comes to that. So there's a search aspect, again, or you can just go directly to SkyRocket.ph. Or I believe you can even just, put my contact info wherever this is going to be posted. No problem. Happy to chat. We'll take it from there.
All right. Good to have you on the show this week. Looking forward to getting into more conversation with you soon, or maybe even like catching up on Philippines. But yeah, lovely having you again. Thanks a lot, Patrick. Catch you soon. Over and out.
See you very soon. Thanks very much. Take care.